Yeah, got a clicker, bottle of water if you need it.
Oh, I'll have to stay behind the podium. I tend to be a walker, so... Oh, you betcha. So, well, thanks for coming to the spicy lecture. I have given this lecture a couple times, and which one? You want that one better?
No, yeah.
Okay. All right. Yay, hey, hey. Okay. So I get to talk to you about prior authorization hacks. And this is, you already know who I am. I'm with the other Dr. Miller. He's the nice Dr. Miller. I'm the sassy Dr. Miller. Here are my disclosures. And we get to talk prior auth. Now, I understand in the room there are going to be different workflows, scenarios. Some of this will be applicable to you, some of this won't be applicable to you. But I'm going to be telling you hopefully something that you can glean from this. In addition, I'll talk a little bit about adherence and persistence with medications, because really what I want to talk about is you as a provider of healthcare see a person in your practice and you see something you want to get for them, okay? Don't just think it's medications. It could be education. It could be technology. It could be any of those things. And I'm going to create, hopefully, some hints, some workflows, and some catchphrases for you to create a story and also to kind of push back, but maybe what we call it is set the standard, because we all know that we try to practice those standards of care with data. And we can all sit here and commiserate and whine together about how many of those barriers for practical health are imposed by the very payers that we have, okay? So I'm going to be giving you quite a bit of practicality regarding that. And so one of the things I want you to think about is a story. Imagine you're in an elevator and we got 4 or 5 floors to go down, and you're like, hey, Eden, I have this patient who has chronic kidney disease and this and this and this and this, and I want to do this particular type of medication, and it's currently on the ADA standards of care, and I'm going to be telling you how to write that into your chart note. Because one of the biggest problems with workflows is that us as clinicians, or maybe that you're on a different side, maybe you're not dictating it, but you need to go back to your dictators of notes and explain this to them. Tell me a story. It can be done. It can be done verbally. It can be done in macros if you're doing electronic health record. Also, AI is really good, and I'm going to be going through this because that story is then going to be cut and pasted and put into prior authorization sites. But I'm also going to tell you how the patient can be an advocate as well. And I had one of those stories that just came to fruition yesterday. So when we look at prior auths, we have one of a couple ways to do it, right? We can pull up camp and get out of town. We can avoid it altogether. We can take the path of least resistance by submitting to all the insurance company formularies to be so astute at what they're covering and what they're recommending that this is how we try to cope. Do you know, a few years ago, we had a lot of people doing this. And I remember speaking to different groups, different clinicians and prescribers, and that was a solution for a time. That many of you can raise your hand. I've even seen metformin need a prior auth. And the reason is because they're not really looking anymore, they're just clicking a box. Because the prior auth process is just a way to delay in order to save money, because insurance companies publish quarterly profits. They're about quarters. We're about lifetime, right? We would love them that if insurance companies or health insurance companies really talked about health. I don't want to bash them too much. We try to work very well with them. Kevin is also trying to encourage the softer side of me to play in the sandbox. But they are really risk mitigation financial plans for disastrous medical costs. That's really what they are. So it's hard because we really need a forum where the prescribers and the industry and the payers all get together. So what I want you to do is to anticipate the prior auth, to create a workflow in your clinical practice that's also going to be going back and talking to the other players, because you're not a singularity. You might be somebody who writes the prior auth. You might be somebody who submits the prior auth. You might be somebody who checks on the prior auth. But you need to create a workflow that uses the foundations of the standards of care. And here's where my spice comes in, and I will also say it on a couple different times. Do you see that bottom line there? And remind the payer that their denial of said standards of care service creates a medical liability that they are encouraging, not us. Again, we're not trying to be mean. We're not necessarily trying to push back. We're trying to say, we set the standard of care, okay? Because you are going to practice with the standards of care. And I will put that into work a little bit more. Is there a way to approach the prior auth process that could increase the likelihood of approval but not cause extra time? Yes. In fact, if you go to the ADA website, so Kevin Miller, again, as he mentioned, he's the chair of diabetes as primary for the ADA. I was on the Overcoming Clinical Inertia and the Technology Board. And so there are some modules there if you want to get additional that you can see about how to do additional prior auths through the ADA. But we're going to talk about some pearls. So there are essentials in the prior auth process. First of all, you got to create a workflow. Your workflow is going to be different than my workflow. You're going to need to dictate a narrative from the chart to support why you're doing it. And there are certain forbidden words I'm going to teach you how to not say. If you are 65 or over under Medicare or even Medicaid in certain states, do not use the word weight loss because that is a forbidden word. Do you know Medicare does not recognize weight-related drugs? So if you're like, oh my gosh, Wegovy would be so awesome for weight loss for the 65 and above, don't say it. You're going to say obstructive sleep apnea. You're going to say fatty liver. You're going to do different things like that because they don't recognize it. Identify a PA champion in your practice. Where there's only a few of us. There's Kevin and I, there's our front office staff and our back office. Our back office gal is our PA champion. You have a conversation. You say, look for my note, look for those things. That is the single best thing to save time. You as a clinician or whoever you are working with, they need to create that narrative so your staff can cut and paste it. Don't make them create it again. We are 2,500 prior auths in this year. 93% of them were approved last year. And about 91% of all prior auths are always approved. Do you guys know that? So make it work for you with the least amount of time. Do you know, and no disrespect to any pharmacists or PharmD here, so I love you. I wish I had my own PharmD. That's one on my Christmas list, Kev. I want my own PharmD, okay? Top of the list. Do you know they can do prior auths? Did anybody know that pharmacists can do prior auths at the point of care? Yeah. They don't. Why? Because they're just as burned out as we are. But they can. Do you know if you find a lovely PharmD who will talk to you about, hey, by the way, this is on formulary, or by the way, there's a coupon, or by the way, there's this, that is a gem and don't ever lose them. Okay? But right now, sometimes, that's probably one of my biggest inertia is that the pharmacy and the PharmDs and myself, we have a disconnect. Anybody get the denial for insulin that comes back, but they don't tell you which one they cover? Right? That's my favorite. And you know what I do? I rage prescribe. All 6 insulins are coming your way. Right? Isn't that terrible? So passive aggressive. Kevin tells me to be nice, right? I rage prescribe. So one of the things I've noticed, and this is what's challenging, is many of you may or may not know that there is a federal law that says at the pharmacy level you are supposed to substitute a generic. And you know that generic might require a prior auth, yet you sent a brand insulin. And you don't know it. So those are the communications with pharmacy that I would just love them if they were to text me or say on there, you know they approved Novolog, not Aspart. And I'd be like, you know I sent Novolog and you subbed Aspart. Right? Those are those things that I call it the bureaucracy running into the bureaucracy. We got a lot of reform to do. Okay? So the equivalent therapeutic awareness, that's a challenge. Do you know I had a lovely conversation, I'm being exceedingly sarcastic, with one of our payers recently because last year they had a different SGLT2 and this year they have a different one. And of course I don't know. And I called her up and I was a little frustrated. And I really was nice. I promise, Kevin, I was really nice. And when I talked with her, I said, you know, I don't know what the therapeutic alternative is. Oh, well, you can look that up on the website. And I said, honey, seriously? I have 2,500 of these. I said, wait a minute, do you want me to employ somebody to look this up? She goes, I know, that is kind of crazy. And I'm like, you need to put it on the denial. Why don't they do that? Right? That would help. Now there's some different things that happen that you can go, but those little things that say, oh, this is covered aren't very accurate. And guess what's happening January 1st? Everyone's going to change. It's challenging, isn't it? We will talk about the 60-second prior auth, which is my template. Now, pick up the phone when you can. I probably do it a couple times a year. I pick up the phone and I talk. Sometimes I'll do a peer-to-peer. Oh my gosh, I really feel bad for the person on the other end when the peer-to-peer comes up. Do you know that they know who not to mess with? Seriously, there are lists out there, okay? I actually was on the phone with a company that I will name nameless, but the people in the room who know where I live is the company I call the most, starts with a P. And I called them and I said, hi, I need to speak to one of your pharmacy directors. Who is this? Oh, this is Dr. Miller. Okay, great. And, doing my paperwork, right? They come back. Oh, hi, yes, Dr. Miller, yes. Don't worry about that, that's been taken care of. What's been taken care of? Oh, that prior auth you need. I didn't tell you why I was calling. I didn't tell you which patient. So they know, right? So it's not that I want to be sassy per se, but I want to stand up for my patients because I really want to empower the patient. So remember how I told you just a moment ago I have a story for the morning? I had a patient who was on insulin who has type 1 who takes half units and uses a pen. The particular insulin that they need is Novolog that goes in the cartridge so they can use the EchoPen, but yet when I sent it, they said, it's an uncovered benefit. And of course they said I didn't send enough data, and I was like, really, did you not get the semi-truck? It'll probably be there tomorrow. But what happened is my staff sends in my note, my narrative. I'm gonna say she's using half units. I'm gonna say what she's tried. I'm gonna say there's nothing else available. And I sent it in and they still denied it. Guess what I do? And this is challenging for some of you. I empower the patient to call the insurance company. Do you know they'll say no to us? But do you know if they say no to the patient, their ratings go down? And the insurance commission looks at the ratings regarding the consumers of a health insurance plan, and they get in trouble if they have bad ratings. So if a patient calls, and my patient called and I gave her the information, she talked with the representative, and the representative said, of course we'll cover it. We just need this little more documentation from Eden. And I was like, really? I sent it, but I was like, thank you very much. Now, but my patients won't call. This is where Kevin and I differ. I say that I can't want it more than the patient wants it. Kevin says sometimes I do, and that's true. But if I'm standing there and a patient is thirsty and I'm splashing water and they're not drinking, I can't make them drink, and I tell patients that. I will go to the ends of the earth for you, but as long as you're walking with me. If you sit in the middle of the trail and you go, I'm not walking, I'll be like, let me know when you're ready to walk. I'm not going to go anywhere. But I'm not going to hike you up. And Kevin says, yes, you do occasionally. But that is important, is to empower your patients. They are consumers. Oh, well, but they're not a consumer. They got Medicaid, or they have, a different particular tribal insurance. They're still a consumer. So empower them to do that. And a lot of times when I do the first prior auth and then the appeal and I don't get anywhere, I hand it over to the patient. And I give them the phone number. And it does work, okay? Remembering to accurately prescribe, right? We forget sometimes, quantity limit, things like that. We'll go through that. Okay, here's the biggest sass of the morning, and yes, if you want this in Word document, I will send it to you because I have not protected it. I want it to go everywhere. I call it the 60-second prior auth. And you could do this for anything. You would kind of fill it in the blank, and I also have this where you can turn it into a macro and you could put it into your electronic system. So we talked about making a story. The process can be daunting. We want to be proactive, not reactive. Yes, it's hard, step therapy and formulators. So how do we do it? Here are my tips. Don't wait for the insurance company to request it. Put it in there ahead of time. Place it. In other words, dictate it directly into the document or use a macro or create it for you at the time of the visit, noting the patient characteristics, the standards of care that lead you to this treatment decision, okay? You're going to be proactive of what you're thinking. Do you know what I often say to the clinicians? I know you're thinking it, write it down. You're thinking, oh my gosh, they have heart failure. An SGLT2 would work really well. Write it down. You're thinking it. You don't have to put trials or A1C reductions. You just have to think it. You know as a health clinician if a medication is generic or branded. I used to say only do prior auth for branded, but I'm still getting prior auths for generics, atorvastatin, rosuvastatin, things where you go, you gotta be kidding me, right? I would suggest that you don't look up what is on formulary because it's not reliable. It's a bit of a waste of time. You may have it if you have special circumstances. I would just suggest you put it in. Document your why. Support your reason behind the decision. In the SOAP note is your story. Let's do a hard one. Ms. Smith comes in. She's a 57-year-old female with type 2 diabetes. She has an A1C of 6.8. She also has a history of hypertension, high cholesterol, family history of heart disease. Her BMI is currently at 31. She has not taken any medication for her diabetes, and her goals for care are to minimize cardiovascular risk, to improve her overall weight and diabetes management. That's SOAP. Maybe it's not a new patient, but it'd be bigger than that, so don't criticize my documentation techniques. Kevin's way better at that. In the objective, it's the heart and lungs. The assessment is new onset type 2 diabetes. Please put the other stuff, dysmetabolic, do it. Put it all there. Early kidney disease, just put it there. Doesn't matter. The diagnostic police are not going to give you a hard time. Okay, they're going to you just put it on there. So here's where it's imperative that you tell the rest of the story. If they've been on a prior treatment and failed, you're going to put it there. You're going to ask them, have you ever been on this? Have you ever been on this? Have you ever been on that? Okay? You're also going to cite information regarding the comorbidities as well as the current standards of care, right? We all know what they are. Guess what? I'm going to save you some trouble. A few years ago, they were not all aligned. They are now all aligned. 2009, they weren't. They are now all aligned. So you can almost assure yourself that you can say the current standards of care that govern and guide us are endorsed by these agencies. Okay, so here's how you finish the note. This is where the sass comes in. Back to our gal, Mrs. Smith. Please let this note serve as a prior authorization. As you know, the ADA standards of care recommend the early use of SGLT2s or GLP-1s in the treatment of type 2 diabetes. In addition, she has secondary comorbidities. They may benefit from this. The patient agrees with this current plan, and I will let this note serve as a prior auth. If the insurance company does not see fit to cover this medication, I will let the patient know that their insurance company is not currently following the standards of care that govern and guide us, and they assume the liability in its denial. Okay, let me tell you something that's a little bit scary, but I don't want us to do fear-based because Kevin and I are not about fear-based medicine. I have been asked on a couple occasions to be an expert witness for diabetes. Not against another provider. I don't know that I would do that. It would be hard. I might say I will just talk about the disease state, but I'm not going to talk about a character of another provider unless we felt there was something, and I'm going to do internal channels for that through the board to help them. But I was testifying with one company against another, and do you know what they asked me over and over again? What are the standards of care? Is this the standard of care? And God forbid if Kevin and I have never been held up to testify against our own conduct, but if we were, and we were held to a bad outcome of somebody, and they were to ask us, Dr. Miller, did you follow the standards of care in the prescribing of this patient? And I'd be like, no, the insurance company wouldn't let me. You think they're going to come and defend you? No, they're not. You think their malpractice or their liability is going to do that? No, they're not. There are some insurance companies that have been held to task. So the reason I say that, Spice, is because I want to set the standard with the patient. Not only, let's say we still don't get it covered. It's not magical, but I will tell you, when I send that language, they don't like that. Because the patient knows that I'm saying this to them, and a lot of times the patient will call them first. Dr. Miller says you're not following standards of care, right? Now, Kevin always reminds me that we still have to work with them, and we still have to be nice to them, and that kind of thing. But it's true because we're trying to do the best we can for the patient. So what happens? I dictate my narrative, I state to the standards of care, the patient knows I'm trying, we're both on the same page, they agree with this therapy. Do you see how it's win-win? And I embed that into the note, and my staff cuts and pastes it in to cover my meds or parachute. Now let's do another thing. Some of you are here and you work in either FQHC clinics or you work in clinics that already have formularies and you kind of get what you get, right? But I would also remind you, if you get what you get, which is great, at least you don't have to do these prior auths, please use the drugs that follow the standards of care. Do you know how many people who have diabetes who are on either an SGLT2 or a GLP-1 who could benefit from it? It's only 20%. And Kevin and I go to the FQHC clinics, and you have no inertia to get it. So please, for my sake, because I would love to live vicariously through you, just prescribe the heck out of those, because they work. For those of you who are on any kind of insulin of any kind of amount, make sure 100% of those people are on CGM. You don't have any inertia. So maybe this isn't a prior auth thing for you, but rather, am I doing within my agency that has covered, am I getting there? Okay, so here's a couple resources. Remember I told you about accurately prescribing? Because you know, if you don't prescribe correctly, the pharmacist is like, I can't give you extra vials of insulin or pens because you're going beyond the prescription. So my staff, this is through a great site, the diabetesed.net, you can get it from them, and it's every insulin with units, with the pens, and with the packets. Do you get that? Because concentrated sometimes comes in packets of 2 in pens, and the U100 comes in packets of 5, and my staff is like, how many units? Here's a quick and dirty. If you want 1 vial of any insulin, most of the time, you do 33.3 units per day. So if you put on there no more than 33 units per day sub-Q, you know you're going to get 1 vial. But we're all going to up-prescribe, right? Because they don't allow us to titrate. So you're going to go no more than 35 units if you want 1 vial. You're going to go no more than 70 units if you want 2 vials. Because 33.3, 66.6, 99.9, that's 1, 2, and 3 vials respectively. Get it? If you do pens, that's 1,500 units. So that's going to be no more than 48 units per day, no more than 80. You get the math. And then you put on there 10 mLs is for 1 vial, 20 mLs, 30 mLs for 3. 15 mLs is for a pack of pens. So you put 15 mLs for no more than 45 units. You put 30 mLs for no more than about 85 or 90. Get the math. That's why if you keep this handout by you, you know how to prescribe. Your staff knows what the volume is. You know how to do it. You're always going to go a little beyond that. Please do not put the exact amount. If you start putting 20 units and you can't go below that in a pen pack or a vial, I one time had a sassy pharmacist said, well, I can't break. You asked for 22 units per day. I can't give them a half a vial. I'm like, then give them a full vial. And then I changed the script to say no more than 35 units, and you go, but you're lying. And I'm saying, but you can't give me a half vial. So what are we supposed to do? That won't happen very often. But that's why your patients will say, I only got a vial, because you didn't change the script to match the amount. So use that. There's another one here as well, okay? This will aid your knowledge in storage and duration and 30 days and 90 days and boxes of pens and concentrated in vials. So you'll check it out. But that rule of 33, 66, 99, let's go 35, 70, and 100, that will get you 30 days worth depending on the supply, okay? You need to do that. Okay. Pharmacy switching, I talked to you about that. They do it. Occasionally, they will split a box of pens. That's illegal. It's illegal. They can't do that. I get a little sassy on that part. They cannot break a box of pens. So I periodically ask my persons with diabetes, how much insulin are you getting? Are you getting a pack of pens? Oh, no, they're breaking in half. Really? So sometimes I pick up the call. Hi, this is Eden. My husband calls it slug and hug because I do slug people because I want them to do better, but I hug them because I really want them to do better from here. I'm not trying to make them feel bad, and so I call them, hi, this is Eden. Yeah, I heard that you broke a box of pens and that. Yeah, Yeah, I know you can't do that. Well, but you said, yep, okay, so I'm going to change the script so you don't have to break a box. You know, you're not trying to get anybody in trouble. You're just trying to get the patients what they need, okay? In addition, when you fill a script, do you know that by law the pharmacy cannot tell the patient what a cash pay option is? Did anybody know that? They cannot proactively tell them that. They can answer it if it was asked. Yes. Okay, let's do an example. Let's do an example. You're sending a Medicare patient a sensor, but you want them on a sensor like Kevin's telling you about, but they don't cover it because they're not on one shot of insulin or they have chronic kidney disease or something like that. They can't say, hey, by the way, this sensor is this amount in cash. They can't say that. But you tell the patients, I would like to know the cash pay. So you know you can write it on the bottom of the script too. Do not do PA, patient wants cash price. Easy. I'm all about efficiency. Don't do PA, cash price only. Now, insulin is cheap because Medicare and Medicaid is subsidized by the government. Do you guys know that? Insulin didn't change in price. Do you know insulin has not changed in price for 10 years? Don't get me started. It's been the same. Oh, well, but it's higher. That's pharmacy benefit managers. It's the same price, but now it's $35 because the federal government pays the PBM the difference. So it's nice for the patient, but we haven't fixed the problem. But we're not talking about PBMs. That's a whole nother conversation, okay? And ask your pharmacist, if you have a really nice one, if they can do the prior auth at the point of care. Okay, take a picture of this. I already went ahead, and as you can tell, I didn't know my slide set. So this is your dosing. Okay, this is your dosing, the 33, 66, 99. This is 30 days. Yes, dear?
Our clinic does this, right? And then the pharmacy types this out on the label, and then the patient comes back and says, my label says to take 30
I know.
minutes a day.
I know. So this is where I tell the patient at the point of care. Okay, let me repeat it. She said, this says on the prescription to take this, but yet that's what I said. Here's what I say to every person that I prescribe insulin. Never read your bottle. I know, but I hand them, so that's another thing, that's my workflow. I hand them, here's another thing I do. When you ever hand a patient a note, make sure you date it. I date it, and I say, this is your insulin dose, because insulin's variable and it changes. So I like that. It is a challenge. It is a barrier. So we say to them, no more than. So when I say no more than, that's kind of their thing, like that's the top, that's when you're going to call me kind of thing. Rather than take 35, I go no more than 35. And then if I put the words as directed on any script, that's my little, as directed means I'm doing something different. So it's my little hint that when a patient sees ad directive or no more than, and I hand them, I do this. And I do this with the script. You're not going to follow the bottle, right? You know what we're doing, right? And I tease them, right? Just to really get it to sit in, but that's a great point. Okay. Half pill. You can cut pills in half, you guys. Certain drugs you can't, certain drugs you can. Extended releases you can't, but immediate release you can. You know, GLP-1 dose at the ends of a half-life beyond 7 days. Don't tell every person this, but GLP-1s work for 10 days. They do. Just say, I'm going to give it to you 10 days for economics, or I'm going to do this, okay? It can happen. I'm not saying do this on everybody, people. These are desperate times for desperate measures, okay? Do you know that regular and NPH insulin does not require prescription at all? That's emergency insulin that you have people get if they're traveling someplace. No prescription whatsoever. No, it's not great insulin. It's ghetto insulin, but it's life-sustaining. Okay, we at least have the life-sustaining. You can do concentrated insulins to make the insulin go longer for some individuals. But right now, insulin isn't as much of a problem, but understand Medicare and Medicaid, it's not the problem. Commercial still is, but don't neglect different things. And then I put in there, oh, Canada, you guys are close to Canada too, but I just realized, Kevin didn't know this, we had some SGLT2 patients that the tariff is making it more expensive currently than we could probably get it in the US. So that's very variable. And they're also having a problem with their postal system. They have a lot of strikes. Lilly Direct, Novo Cares, please. Anybody see Costco's announcement on GLP-1s? Oh, they just did it yesterday. Costco's carrying GLP-1s for the lowest dose for $3.49, AKA they are buying them through here. Here's my question. Okay, Kevin, to do, since you're part of our clinic. I want to call Costco and ask them if they're requiring them to buy it every month for that price. Because when you go to Lilly, Cares, or Novo, you have to do GLP-1s every 2 months. So if you get a higher dose and you split dose it so it lasts longer, so it's cheaper, you still have to order it every 2 months to get the price, the cheap. This is cash pay. So you can go to Lilly Direct and Novo Care and get Zepbound and Wegovy for $349 a month. If you break it in half, it lasts 2 months. Get it? But you got to order it every 2 months to get the deal, but Costco just announced it, so I don't know if they're going to require it every month as well. It's about split dosing GLP-1s, prescribing the higher one and cutting it in half. I can talk to you specifically about that later. They're in vials. They're not in pens. They're in vials. They're cheaper, and they're small doses. Okay, let's keep moving on. You need to know this. Where am I at time-wise? Because I always... Oh, okay, I have to speed up. Okay, these are kind of the nomenclature you need to know. Prior auth, step therapy. Step therapy means you have to go metformin, that kind of thing. Do you know that metformin is not the first-line drug anymore on the ADAs for last 2 years? He helps implement the standards of care. Neither of us are on the standards of care. He just helps implement it, but metformin is not required anymore. You can remind them, metformin's off the standards of care now. I'm not saying metformin's bad. She's a good queen. Her reign has ended. Okay, there are better queens right now. Understand there's different tiers, quantity limits. I get this all the time. You guys have put too much of the product on the prescription, and it'll hit back quantity limit. You'll get it for insulin, you'll get it for GLP-1s, you'll get it for pills, where you put the wrong amount on there for the days. You put 45 pills for 30 days, and they'll say quantity limit. Okay, so remember, make sure you know that. What's a copay card? Use them. This is where your pharmacy helps. Copay cards cannot be used with Medicare or state Medicaid. It is not used. But if you have commercial, make sure they're doing copay cards. Talk to the drug reps. Look at the websites. Look at GoodRx. Sometimes PBMs refuse to count it, especially mail away, which is really frustrating. Brand name drugs only. Patient assistance programs. You guys should be handing out these applications left and right. How do I know to hand out a patient assistance program? When they say to me, I can't even cover my copay, then I do a patient assistance program. I'll talk about Medicare in a minute. There are patient assistance programs for Medicare, by the way. There are. You can fill them out. If you have a patient who's on Medicare and they can't get patient assistance program, and they still can't evade their copay, they need to apply for extra help. So they get Medicare and Medicaid, so they have no copay whatsoever. Got to do that more often. Again, this is where the patient needs to fill out their forms. Copy off a lot of them and hand them to them. Okay? Medicare Prescription Payment Program. Anybody know the MP3 program? MP3. Whoop, whoop. Of course you do. Everyone in this room should know MP3. It just came out this year. I call it drug layaway. For those of you under 40, you have no idea what layaway means. For those of you over 40, we were layaway children, right? So when you sign up for the MP3 program, you do it through your insurance company. You don't do it at the pharmacy. It is not a cost. It is for all Medicare beneficiaries. They will take your deductible, $500, plus your copay, smush it all together, and you have a monthly payment no more than $167 for every single drug you prescribe. So you know how you used to go, and it would be $800, and then $100, and then nothing, and the patient never knew where they were at. There's no more donut hole, by the way. Gone, 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 gone. So if a patient says to you, oh, I went and got that GLP-1, and I had to spend $600, I know immediately they're not in the MP3 program. Because what you're doing is paying $500 deductible for the year plus the copay. So the next time they go in, it's going to be $100. And then the next time it's 100, and then it's 0, and nobody knows why. And the pharmacy is not going to tell you where they're at in their Medicare benefits. So every patient on Medicare should be on MP3. That payment is directly taken out of their Medicare payment that they make for their Medicare. You know what I mean? They already signed up for their payment. This gets done. So that means I'm not talking just brand name. Every single script will be no more than 167 total. You get that? Total. So these are the additional things of it. You can see the features regarding it. You can go online. It doesn't save money. It spreads it out because people are on a fixed income and they don't want 800 at the first of the January. This should be something on everybody's list before January 1 that this is the single best thing that kept me in medicine this year. Seriously, I was like, MP3, I can last another year. Okay? Extra help. www.socialsecurity.gov. If you have a patient who cannot pay for their copays because they're like, even my $167 a month is too much, please have them sign up for extra help. Then they have Medicare and Medicaid, and they pay zero. Medicare and Medicaid. Those should be, that is not your problem to solve, it's theirs to solve. Okay, here's the top down, right? Extra help, copay assistant, cash pay. Anybody ever use GoodRx? Great company. Okay? Great company. Look right here real quick because these are the highlights. Do not send CGM on a person over 65 to the pharmacy. Knock it off. Knock it off because they're going to tell you it's denied and you're going to think it's not covered. CGM goes through Part B as in boy, not D as in drug. You got to send it to durable medical equipment. Now, if you say, yeah, but my pharmacy processes Part B, I don't believe them. Maybe they do, but I don't believe them. It must go to DME. Right now, we're trying to change that law. Some pumps go through D. Some pumps go through B. If you're on an Omnipod, you go through D. That's kind of nice. You don't have to go to DME. Other ways to save. Just do this top down. Other ways to save. Options at the pharmacy. You do a membership. 340B pharmacies. If you're a 340B pharmacy. Needymeds.org. Needymeds.org is your single best resource for copay cards, prior auth coverage. It is the single best resource you can do. It's a nonprofit agency. You can put in every drug, every therapy, everything, and it will give you all of those different resources for people to navigate, for your staff to navigate. Okay? Here are some other places you can go to. These are the two top ones. Those are all the different apps and the coupons and the things. And some pharmacy do certain ones. And you can ask when you're at the pharmacy level, do you have certain coupons or different agencies you work with? This is how you have your patients being proactive. This is just a very brief of the needymeds.org. Do you see it? Healthcare savings, education, getting started, services, news, blog. Look at this. It has so much resources of where to click, of what to do, and how to download it, and how your patients, you can navigate it. Your patients can navigate it. This is putting the power into their hands. Here it is again, one-stop shopping. Look at all the different things, all the way to camps and retreats. That's cool. This is a one-stop disease shopping place. Okay, where you can get everything you need from patient education. Here, I put Zepbound in here, but I alluded to it. We're going to wrap up a little bit, but this is your cash pay option. It is so outdated because 2 days ago, Costco just announced they're doing the same thing. But where are they getting it from? They're getting it from here, which is fine. They're getting it from there. Why is that cool? Because Kevin talked with you about preventing diabetes. And yes, I promise you, we are dedicating our lives to get the recognition of early diabetes, CGM as a diagnostic tool, to change so we can prevent the disease. But wouldn't it be great to be able to prevent diabetes so it never graduated? And so right now, this is a way you can get it. Now, this is actually $4.99 now. They just changed it. It's $4.99 for the higher things. So here's my thing. Let's say you prescribe the 5 milligram vial, which is 0.5 mLs, 50 cc's or 50 units is 0.5 mLs. And let's say you want to do 2.5 milligrams of the 5 milligram, you take 25 units. You get it? Half. So this bottle lasts you 2 months, and it's now $4.99. But you got to order it every 2 months to get this deal. That's why Kevin's going to call Costco and ask him if you have to order it every month. Because you can split dose. He talks better to people. I'm really an introvert. Don't mock me. High deductible health plans. You got to know your patients. I'm going to wrap it up real quick. High deductible health plans. Ask your patients. There are some of them that have to pay every single thing out of pocket until they reach a deductible, including pharmacy. There are no covered drugs. And when they go to the pharmacy and they go, yeah, but metformin's $4, I'm like, you're still paying cash for it. Metformin is 4 cents a pill. Do you know metformin is the highest price increase drug on the market? Yeah, but we don't care about 4 cents to $4. Get them involved. Have them do part of the work. Send them your note. Send it over to their secure health record. Have them call the insurance company. And you tease them, well, I got to be on the phone for 30 minutes. And like, I have time for that? And you should see how they advocate for themselves. If a patient advocates for a drug, what are they likely? More likely to stay on it. So let's go through new policies and we'll wrap it up. Okay. New legislation to streamline prior authorization process as of June 23rd, 2025, Health and Human Secretary Services. Here's what they're going to try to do. Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, United Healthcare, CVS, all of these have signed on. They want to improve the healthcare prior authorization process. They want to make it better. They want to make transparency. Am I cynical? You bet I'm cynical. But you know what? Good for them. Okay, federal initiatives. These are some of the federal initiatives that are currently out for CMS. CMS is different than commercial. These are the things for expanded coverage, for better look at this. We all know, and we've said it before, Kevin and I have been invited on many different policies to be there, and we said, you're killing us with prior auth. You're killing us. Notable legislation passed in 2025. Do you see you guys are on the list there? You guys are on the list, lower right-hand corner in the middle. These are some new things that you have to have a decision of a prior auth in 24 to 48 hours. You guys are doing that. Okay? So there's some improvement that are there. This is your Senate bill. They have to know within 72 hours. It has some exceptions. There are, for those on cancer, they don't have to do SEP therapy. I would say that diabetes is just as serious as cancer, but they didn't ask me. Okay? Get involved in your reform in your local area. Write letters, testify, go and be invited. You know, sometimes it's just signing a petition letter. Sometimes it's getting super spicy, writing an op-ed, testifying. We've done all of those. Here are your people to contact so you can get involved. Here's our final slide. Here's how you do a successful prior auth. Workflow is the key. Dictate a narrative. Identify your champion. Ask your pharmacy if they could assist you as well or help you in the... I often will write on the thing, what's the preferred drug if it's not covered? Please let me know. Specialty pharmacy, do the 60-second prior auth. Therapeutic alternatives, and if in doubt, pick up the phone, both you as a prescriber as well as the patient. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Eden. You are wrapping up just perfectly on time. So hopefully you'll be around in case anyone has any burning questions. They can reach out to you. Aubrey, I'm going to let you take that again.